Today I will be presenting on the San Antonio Spurs during the Tim Duncan era. The Spurs are known as being one of the most successful sports franchises of all time, and the most success they found was during the Tim Duncan era, which is what I will talk about today. So, the Spurs aren't the only successful NBA team. Many other teams have been able to put together a dynasty like they have. For example, the Chicago Bulls won 6 championships with Michael Jordan. The Magic Johnson Lakers won 5 championships, and the Larry Bird Celtics won 3 championships, among a couple other dynasties. What separates the Spurs from those other franchises is that the Spurs are a small market team located in San Antonio. So large market teams have an advantage of being able to attract free agents with a more attractive city to live in, like Los Angeles or New York. Also, their owners typically let them spend into the luxury tax, so the general managers and the coaches who put the teams together can spend more money than teams like the Spurs. And in fact, the Spurs are the only small market team to have put a dynasty together. Since 1958, only 2 other small markets have won championships, and both of those were in the 70s, the Portland Trail Blazers and the Seattle Sonics. So, in the following slides, I will look at how the Spurs were able to be the lone small market NBA team to put a dynasty together. It all started with when they drafted Tim Duncan in 1997. Most teams would like to say they made a genius move to start their dynasty, but drafting Tim Duncan was no genius move. It was really just a stroke of luck. They only had a 21% chance to win the lottery this year, which is a 1 in 5 chance. So they weren't going into the lottery with the highest of hopes to win, but they were fortunate and won the lottery and were able to select Duncan. In Duncan's second season, they won the championship, and in his first season, they had an immediate turnaround from a bottom team to a playoff team, which started their following dynasty up until his retirement. After their stroke of luck, they had to make a lot of smart moves to be able to put a whole team together, because after all, it's not just one player, there's 5 players on the court at a time and 15 on a team. And since they had Duncan, they weren't able to draft high anymore, so they had to be creative about how they did it. The Spurs found talent overseas when other teams weren't looking there, and they drafted Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili late in the draft as undervalued selections that turned out to be all NBA players. And in the entire Duncan era, they never drafted in the lottery once, so every year they had to find talent late in the draft, and they did that. And once the big 3 of Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili started to age, they had to make a youthful move to bring young talent into the roster. And they did that with, at the time, a controversial move when they traded a player named George Hill, who was a favorite on the team, a favorite of Coach Popovich. They traded him for the 15th pick, where they selected Kawhi Leonard, who turned out to be another All-NBA player, and helped them win their 5th championship in the Duncan era. And although the Spurs focused on building their team through the draft, they also had to be smart in free agency. Since they were paying Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili high salaries and they couldn't pay into the luxury tax, they had to find cheap talent. And they did that by bringing in lesser-known players like Danny Green, who had been cut by other teams, Bruce Bowen, who was undrafted, and Fabrizio Alberto, a relatively unknown foreign player from Ginobili's Argentina. And these players helped the Spurs by honing in on one elite talent to surround the superstars. Bowen was a great defensive player, Danny Green was a great shooter, and Alberto set screens and rebounded well. A lot of people talk about the Spurs culture, which is another reason they've been so successful. This culture has started because of their great head coach, Greg Popovich. Popovich is an Air Force graduate who has a reputation of being stern, but is also beloved by his players because he cares about them outside of basketball. Because Duncan and Parker and Ginobili bought into this culture and had a low ego, sacrificed money and minutes for the betterment of the team, the role players followed along, and they built an unselfish brand of basketball. To conclude, the Spurs were able to have much success because of an incredibly fortunate break, which they then leveraged into a lot of smart front office moves, a great culture, and just great teamwork from all of their players. Thank you.